I want you to imagine a board game similar to that of chess, but one where hundreds and hundreds of boards are lined up back to back, a game where each move you make is equivalent to a day's worth of time. This is a game with thousands of possible moves, symbolizing the thousands of different choices you can make every day. Welcome to the game of life. Now, the fact of the matter is, you are playing this game whether or not you're aware of it. Every single day, you are either making the right moves, bringing you closer to a happy and fulfilled life, or you are making the wrong moves, getting you further from all this good stuff and closer to all the pain and suffering that the world has to offer. Now, I got good news and bad news for you. The good news is that the game of life is a rather long game. Most players get to make around 28,000 moves. That's about 79 years worth of moves before the game is over. Even more good news is the fact that you don't have to play perfectly. You can make plenty of mistakes, and as long as you make more right than wrong moves, you'll still be winning at the game of life. You'll still be able to find happiness. And to top that off, there are dozens of right moves that you can make every day. So it's not like you have to figure out exactly what to do. You just have to figure out one of the many right things to do. And if you're able to make many right moves in a row, the benefits will start to compound and you will succeed at an astounding rate. Now, let's talk about the bad news. The bad news is if you make a bunch of wrong moves and don't learn from those mistakes, if you continue to make the wrong choices repeatedly, your life will take a turn for the worse and you will find yourself falling deep into a never-ending pit. Life can start to feel like hell on earth if you consistently make too many wrong moves. Now, I want to end this little thought experiment by telling you about the best news. The best news is that anyone can win at the game of life, no matter how behind you might feel, how many wrong moves you've been making recently, or what your current life situation is like. You still have a very good shot at finding happiness and fulfillment in life. The only question is, how do you know how to make the right moves? Well, there are three ways to do this. The first is through luck. Sometimes we don't know what to do, and we just randomly choose what move to make, and by pure chance, it turns out that we did the right thing. The second way is through mentors. Good mentors are essentially people who have been successfully playing the game of life longer than you have. They can look over your shoulder at your board and help you differentiate between the right and the wrong moves. But good mentors are far and few. If you have access to one, definitely try to nurture that relationship. The third and final way to make the right move is the most important. It is through wisdom, which is when you can tell the right from the wrong all on your own. This is the most crucial of the three because you got to be able to rely on yourself at the end of the day. Your mentors, teachers, and parents can't hold your hand forever. And the great thing about wisdom is that anyone can cultivate it by studying three simple subjects. The first subject is human behavior. You need to study how people think and behave. What will people most likely do in certain scenarios? Why do they do those things? What are some patterns that appear over and over again in certain cultures? What do people want in life? You must study human nature because the fact of the matter is that we live in a world run by humans. Humans are the only species on this planet capable of accomplishing great things and the only ones capable of bringing about mass destruction. And if you know how humans act, you can predict the future with far more accuracy. For example, I know that humans have a habit of procrastinating. As a species, we don't like to take action until the problem is so severe that we can no longer ignore it. Just look at how we reacted to the virus. We didn't really do anything until it was already too late. And I had a feeling that this would happen. Back in January, when I first read about the virus and saw how America was responding to it, I realized that we would react too slowly. So I made several moves based on this prediction, which allowed me to increase my net worth by 50% in just a couple of months. I was able to make the right move because I understand human behavior. Now the question remains, how do you improve your understanding of human behavior? Well, first and foremost, you got to read psychology books like The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, which breaks all of it down in extreme detail. You can read certain history books like Sapiens by Yuval Harari, which will give you insight on what humans have done throughout history and why. And finally, you can learn from experience by exposing yourself to as many human interactions as possible, which will allow you to become more familiar with their patterns over time. Of course, you should probably wait until the pandemic is over before doing this. The second subject you have to study are the current events. Now, many people in the self-improvement world will tell you that you should stay as far away as possible from the news as it will bring too much negativity into your life. But I think that you should keep up with the current events because it essentially dictates the rules of the game. Let me explain. Just a year ago, before we had the pandemic, we were essentially playing a totally different game. What was considered to be the right moves back in that world are totally different from the right moves in this world. Back then, you could still open a small business with a physical location and expect to do relatively well. While nowadays, we all know that such a task is practically impossible. If you were unaware of the current events, if you didn't know about the pandemic until it actually hit your neighborhood and you decided to start a business with a physical location in January, you would have been absolutely screwed. On the other hand, if you read about the virus back in January like I did, then you would have realized that the game was about to change and that you should hold off on any major decisions until you see how it plays out. It is foolish to not read the news because the world is constantly changing. If you are caught at the wrong place at the wrong time because you aren't aware of these changes, it can literally be the worst move of your life. Imagine being stuck in a country as its government collapses like we are currently seeing in multiple places worldwide. You won't even have time to worry about self-improvement because you'll have to worry about surviving. Now, there is some truth to what people say about the news. If you spend too much time reading it, it can definitely bring a lot of negativity into your life. This is why I suggest that you either update yourself just once a week or even once every 2 weeks if you feel like you are especially sensitive, or if you are like me and you don't mind doing it daily, make sure to do it later on in the day when you've already finished with all of your work so that it doesn't interfere with your focus. Which is why this episode was brought to you with the help of the guys over at Morning Brew. Morning Brew is a free daily newsletter that arrives in your email inbox from Mondays to Saturdays, and simply put, they update you on the latest news in a fun and entertaining way. This is great because it allows you to keep up to date with current events without spending hours on actual news sites. Morning Brew compiles the most important news of the day into a simple and easy to read email that you can consume in less than 5 minutes. Last week, they covered the current drama going on in the post office. They also provided me with some statistics about how colleges are operating during the pandemic. You can also subscribe to some of their alternative newsletters that focus on business, marketing, tech, and much more. Morning Brew is completely free with no strings attached. All you have to do is click on the link in the description box below and enter your email, and that's it. You'll start receiving a daily newsletter, and you can unsubscribe at any time. If you guys want an easy way to keep up with current events, then I highly suggest you to check them out. Now back to the topic at hand, the last subject you need to study are the facts of nature. This is basically understanding how nature works, things like physics, biology, technology, etc. And you need to study this because these things are proven to be true and will continue to be true no matter what the circumstances are. We can predict that an apple will fall when you drop it because of gravity. We can predict that a virus will spread more rapidly nowadays because of international air travel. We can predict that people will have more health problems in cities with high air pollution. These are just facts about how the world works. Now, how does this translate into making the right move in life? Well, I'll give you an example. Based on what I've learned about the climate, I predict global warming will cause sea levels to rise much faster than people think it will. And if I was someone who planned on investing in real estate to grow my wealth, and if I lived in a place like New York City or the southern part of Florida, I would be absolutely screwed if I doubled down and started purchasing property in those areas. Because chances are, in a couple of years, my properties will get flooded and I'll lose a ton of money. Knowing this, I can invest in real estate in other areas that are less likely to be affected by climate change, which has a higher chance of being the right move. Now, it can be a bit hard to study the laws of nature because most of us are not scientists, which is why the best alternative is to consume content by people who specialize in specific fields. But it's also important to note that you'll find people who support both sides. Most scientists believe in climate change, but there are still some that do not. In these cases, it's crucial to listen to both sides of the argument and see who backs their claims with facts as compared to emotions. The side with more evidence is usually right, although sometimes the evidence can be made up, so you do have to do a decent amount of research. You can also test to see if what they're saying is true. For the rising sea level example, you can just look up the amount of ice in the Arctic. Once you do, you'll see that it is at record lows this year, which supports the idea that climate change is in fact happening. And that's it. Make sure to study human nature, current events, and the laws of nature extensively to increase your chances of making the right moves in the game of life. If you can do this, you will be able to find more happiness in life, and you will also be able to avoid unnecessary pain and suffering. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and besides that, guys, stay tuned.